Happy Sunday morning to everybody. It is time to talk about Babylon in the Bible and its significance. It starts with a man named Cush, who was the grandson of Noah. He begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. That was probably a local proverb people heard a lot. This dude was a mighty hunter. It says in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and then he built some other big metropolis cities. Maybe that's why he was a hunter. He had to clear out all the wild animals. Let's see what happens next. In Genesis 11, he builds the tower and the city of Babel, and it was in the plains of Shinar, modern-day Iraq. And this word Babel, the Hebrews came to associate with confusion, because that is where God changed the languages of people. By the way, you can trace all language groups back to this area. That's where it started. How do you think else all these advanced civilizations start appearing suddenly? And they have different languages that are not related to each other. So you have the Tower of Babel. That is the next stop. And now we're going to look at how Babel or Babylon developed. But it is also important to note what the actual mean Babel. It means gate of the gods. Ba means gate. El means God, short for Elohim. So they believe that was the meeting place of the gods. But let's see how Babylon developed. Now keep in mind, after the flood, Babel was the first civilization that shook its fist in defiance against the God of the earth, the Creator. Now, in the 7th century BC, you have the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Nebuchadnezzar II came along, and notice this, in the 5th month, 7th day of the month, this is the year 605, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and he burnt the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house he burnt with fire. He desolated Jerusalem, burned it to the ground, because they ignored the warnings of Jeremiah and Isaiah before them. Then Israel spent 70 years in captivity in Babylon. But now let's look at the apocalyptic aspect of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which, by the way, was built on the ruins of where the Tower of Babel was. The historian Herodotus confirms this. In Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, and his spirit was troubled within him. And none of his magicians or astrologers or soothsayers, all those satanic scientists, could not interpret the dream or tell him that. So he got mad and was about to kill all of them. And as he came along, he was about to kill all the wise men of Babylon. He came across Daniel the Hebrew, who was one of the wise men, but was not included in the interpretation of the dream. Daniel says, "Give me time and I'll explain it to you." Daniel explains to Nebuchadnezzar, he says, "This is the dream, and I'm going to tell you the interpretation. King, you're a king of kings. The God of heaven has given you kingdom, power, strength, and glory." Nebuchadnezzar dreamed of this mighty image of different metals, and the head was of gold. And Daniel tells him, he says, "You are this head of gold." So Babylon represents the head of gold in the statue of Daniel chapter 2. What else does it represent in the other prophecies? About 50 years later, Daniel gets a vision, and this time Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, is on the throne. He's actually second in command, but Daniel dreams a dream, and the first beast, he sees 4 beasts coming up from the sea. That represents many nations, and they're different from one another. The first one was like a lion and had eagle's wings. This represented Babylon. This represents the Lamassu. It's on the procession way of the gates of Babylon. I've gone to Istanbul and actually seen those gates. They said don't touch them, but I had to touch it because I figured maybe Daniel touched it. I just felt like it would be pretty cool to do. But Babylon is represented as a lion with eagle's wings in Daniel 7. The next time we see Babylon mentioned in Bible prophecy is in Daniel as Revelation, and this is in chapter 17. An angel takes John the Revelator out to see this vision, and he says, "I'm going to show you the whore that sits on many waters." Well, who is this whore? Who is this prostitute? It says the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Kind of reminds you of the fall of Babylon in Daniel 5, when they were all getting drunk and destroyed that night. It says, "So he carried me away into the spirit, into the wilderness, wilderness, and he saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. What a wild picture. A whore sitting on a scarlet-colored beast that's covered with names of blasphemy that has 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. She has got lots of bling, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. This is a nasty woman Babylon has become, this whore. It says upon her forehead was written a name, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So she has children. This woman, which represents a church, but it's also a political power, has harlot children. There have been churches that have broken away from this harlot political power and have kept and retained some of her false doctrines, mainly fornicating with the kings of the earth. And it says, I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. She's killing God's people in the name of God, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And so here you've got Mystery Babylon mentioned in Revelation chapter 17 as a harlot that kills God's people and has improper relations with the kings of the earth, which means that the true husband of the church is Jesus Christ, but she has divorced herself from Christ and chosen the kings of this earth, an earthly kingdom instead of a heavenly. Let's look at one other spot. During the 7 last plagues, at the very 7th plague, it says the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. So this is a worldwide empire that Babylon is heading. It says, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And notice this right up here in the previous verse, verse 16, when it's divided into 3, it says this very interesting thing. It says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon and the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth, the same people Babylon is committing fornication with, and of the whole world, to gather them together to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. That is Armageddon, my friends. Babylon is heavily involved in Armageddon, but I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Babylon don't win. Revelation 18, there's a great call for people to come out of Babylon because it has fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. That doesn't sound nice. Again, all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Notice this, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people. God has people in Babylon, and before he returns, he is going to call them out of Babylon so they can be safe and not be destroyed with her. It says that you be not partakers of her sins and that you do not receive of her plagues, that the 7 last plagues will not fall upon you. And notice that as she falls, you have the merchants of the earth, the kings of the earth, and notice where they're standing. Notice where they're standing here. They're standing afar off for fear of her torment. That's how close friends of the world are. They're friends with you when you give them benefits, but once they see you go down, they stand far away. And so that's what's going to happen to Babylon on the last day. She's going to be destroyed, and none of her friends are going to help her. And the message for you today is to come out of Babylon. So again, the rebellion against God after the flood started with Babylon, and the rebellion against God before the second coming ends with Babylon. Stay away from it. Stay away from religious political alliances.